Hi, everyone. Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. I'm Linda McKissack.
And I'm Dana Gentry.
Hey, Dana, how are you?
I'm doing good. We had some technical technical difficulties today. For all the people that think that podcasting is like this perfect podcast world, it's not.
Yep. Yep. So true. And what a great lead in for our guest today, because if
Yeah.
we didn't give her proof that we need help, I don't know. I don't know what else she needs.
Christy, we're so excited to have you today. You just spoke in our region in person at the big Mega Agent Summit in the Ohio Valley region, and it just was so good. And also, I wanted to tell you today on the regional call, the OP Team Leader regional call, Press and Anna were asking for feedback. And so many people said that they were so glad that you spoke and that like the ops side was brought into it. And I was like, we're having her on our podcast today, so you'll have to listen.
That's awesome. I was so grateful. Thank you guys so much. Linda, thank you to you and Press and the whole region for having me last week and for including operations. Like that's top down leadership. That was all you guys. So I'm
Well,
super
we're
excited to be here.
we're glad we did too. And thanks for the sweet card. I actually read it today, so thank you.
Oh,
Oh,
good. That
yeah.
means I mailed it to the right place.
Somehow it got to me. I don't know where it came from. I don't do my mail. I don't do anything. It just shows up on my counter, and sometimes I read it, and sometimes I'm like, somebody else needs to read all this.
Well, Christy, we
Awesome.
always kind of start with tell us just who you are, where you're from, a little bit about you. Tell us about OpsBoss, the brief version, and then we'll get into your tips and kind of what you shared, and then what left Linda and I a little stumped.
Yes.
Okay, good. I can't wait to hear that part. So awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm Christy Belt Grossman. I am the owner and founder of OpsBoss Coaching, which is, I say, the premier coaching company for operations unicorns around the country. We have a team of 13, and my background is 23 years as COO of one of Keller Williams' top real estate teams. So I'm super passionate about all things operations. I started on a team with me and two agents, and we grew and grew. And then out of that came OpsBoss Coaching, where we teach, train, and coach operations people around the country. So that's enough about me. Like, let's dive into the good stuff.
Awesome.
That's amazing. I love it. And did you say that you're in the DC area?
I
Did
am
we
in
were
the
just
DC area, and then my team, we all work virtually. So all of our coaches are boots on the ground operations people as well. So they're in all different parts of the country.
Oh, you just gave me one more question then that I have. Because I've been having a little bit of an issue with working remote. I mean, not an issue, but just a question.
Yeah.
So I'll have to make sure I ask that. Go ahead, Linda.
So what made you, realize that there was a need for coaching? And do you normally coach the ops people, or do you coach the team lead? Who do you actually coach?
We coach the operations people. We have my master coach Stephanie Brackett does have some quote unquote leadership teams that she coaches, but it's from the operational perspective. You know what came from that was when I started in real estate, and I'm in Northern Virginia, right outside of Washington D.C. There were about 20 some thousand agents, and there were two assistants, and I was one of them. And so we would go to all these, events like the awesome event you had last week, and there would be no operational training. And so I loved going to them, but I wanted to be around my people who thought like me and worked like me and had the challenges I had and came at them from an operational point of view. And so I started teaching and mentoring and helping people, and that eventually grew into the business. I think those operational leaders need high level thinkers that think differently than a rainmaker thinks, right? Rainmaker is a visionary and has their own skills, but we need to really pour into the operational people behind the scenes in order for the business to grow to its maximum potential. So that's kind of where it came from. And I just created what I wish I always had when I was an admin.
What is the biggest gap that you see that when you started coaching ops people that was there that maybe us rainmakers didn't even know was there?
I think there's often a gap between the vision, the articulation of the vision, and how I'm going to get there, and the operations person doesn't necessarily have to have all the answers and know how to do it, but they were missing the resource, the community, the other like-minded thinkers where they could mastermind, they can find answers. And so in absence of that, they look to the rainmaker, but that's not the rainmaker's gift and skill, right? So there's a gap that a coach can help close between here's where your rainmaker's thinking and here's where we want to go. And you can, as the admin or the operations person, close that gap, but they don't necessarily know how to tell you how to do that. A coach can help you with that, or a trainer can help you with that.
Love that. You
Yep.
said one thing, well, you said a lot of great things when you spoke, but one of the things that you said that Linda and I both really liked was you said life-giving leaders. You talked a lot about that, and we're going to talk about that today, are into people growth. They're all partners with their ops boss. And so you talked about the 4 tips of life-giving leaders, and I thought kind of quickly maybe if you could run through those 4, and then I think that'll lead into what Linda and I were kind of stumped on when we were debriefing it.
Your questions. Awesome. Well, I think just to backtrack to give people the perspective of what the life giving leader, I think one thing I think KW has done a fantastic job at is teaching agents how to be business owners, right? To look at our business as a business. And so we have to make that initial transition of we start off and we're really great at sales. So now we hire an assistant, or maybe we hire 2 assistants, and we have to transition from being a salesperson to a business person. But the thing I see people miss is the next transition, which is becoming a life-giving leader, which is
Mm.
different. And that is where focusing on your people matters. And if you focus on your people, it translates down into profit and it translates down into sales, but it doesn't translate up the other way. Like, we cannot only focus on profit or only focus on sales, and then we don't have the right people around us. We lose them. So we have to be a good leader. So the tips I was giving was, in particular, you could probably apply them with other positions on your team, but in regard to leading an ops boss, I call it an ops boss. By the way, we trademarked that term, just like realtor. So you get to use the little R. I'm proud of that. But
Love
we
that.
also trademarked that term because to me, an ops boss is a higher level person than just quote
Mm.
unquote an assistant or an admin. And so the tips were doing the 2, which is, I think it's hard to transition to leader when you have a limited amount of time, right? We all have a million things on our plate. And so whoever your primary operations leader is, you might have one business, so you have one operations leader, or you might have, I own maybe 7 market centers. So now I've got a regional leader that leads the market centers. But if you can give that most important leader 90 minutes of your time per week, that investment will pay off in spades. And that would be just 2 quick meetings, 30-minute meeting talking about goals, personal and business, and a 60-minute meeting where they get to ask for what they need. I need, like, hey, Linda, you said you wanted to, build this new program for recruiting. Like, tell me what that would look like a year from now if I killed it. Like, cast the vision for that, ask for questions. Or, hey, Linda, I need a meeting with, I worked on this project, I got it to an 8. What would make it a 10 for you? Like, here's what it looks like, things like that. So that's do the 2. Then we talked about education budget, and
Mhm.
having
Love
an
that.
education budget that's completely at their discretion, because what we know is that rainmakers are always growing. Successful rainmakers, they're not only growing in business, but they're growing in their personal life too, right? And we have to be healthy and growing in all the areas of our life to be successful in business. And so if you can give them a budget, and that's where, Linda, you asked about gaps. That's a gap I see all around the country. You
Mhm.
go to any class and you will see lots of business owners there and hardly any operations people. So if you can bring them with you, or let them go to what they think is important for them. And it may be personal and it may be business.
Mm.
I have a
Dana, what were
quick
you going to ask?
Okay, thanks. I was gonna say I have a quick question on that because I think that that is a huge part of it. And you saying that sometimes you don't see a lot of them around the rooms and events. What's one thing that you look for in ops boss
Mm.
candidates or ops boss that says like, "Hey, I'm learning based," or I'm growth oriented. Do you know what I mean? Like I have a growth mindset.
Or even someone who is just a definition of what she would call an ops boss. I had the same question.
Yeah.
So I am very an evidence-based person. So when I'm interviewing somebody, I'm looking for evidence, that not just words, because we often will ask questions of, oh, are you growth minded? Are you detail oriented? All those things. And they know what you're looking for. So they're going to tell you. So I have a philosophy that anything, any quality that's important to me, I go we have that whole three deep concept from, we used to have it from Recruit Select, right? Go three deep on references. I go three deep on qualities. So for example, if I'm looking for someone who is growth oriented, I'm going to be like, oh, hey, so, I love people who are growth oriented. Tell me about, what does that look like in business for you? And then they'll give you an example. Then I'll flip it to personal and say, hey, like, tell me, like, in your friend group, like, there's always the one who makes the reservations for dinner, or the one that is leading the conversation at dinner, or which one are you? Like, tell me what that looks like, or how does growth oriented look like in your personal life? And then I go back to business. So I ask three examples. People who are not growth oriented, or whatever quality you're looking for, will have a hard time giving you the third example. They might be able to give you one, maybe two, but by the time you get to three, but the person who's really growth oriented, they'll be like, oh my God, I went to this Tony Robbins thing and it was so good. And here's what I took from it and implemented. And now you've got evidence that they've actually done it.
So the first time would be, tell me about how you did it in business, then personal. What's the third one?
And then back to business, because I really want to
Oh,
know how they show up in their role at the office.
so they should have a second one or third one or
They
something in
should have
business.
at least three examples, three deep, of real examples. Like, it might be, I need someone who's detail oriented. And it's so, oh, well, how do you stay organized? Oh, I have something in my
Mhm.
phone and I use the latest app, for this. Oh, well, how does being detail oriented show up in your personal life? Oh my God, whenever we have family parties, everybody's like, oh, Christy, you have to be the one to organize the party because you'll have all the details. Okay,
Mm.
awesome. Now give me an example at your last job. How did it show up? Oh, I was the one in charge of X, Y, and Z, because I get all the details.
I think that's important. I like that you shared that, Christy, because I've been pretty blessed that most of my ops partners are very learning based. Like they love to go to everything.
Mhm.
And I have other OPs and some team leaders that I coach that like feel like they're dragging some of their operations people
Mhm.
because they would rather just come in, do the task and, get to the task, not necessarily, you know, go to events or learn or they're there, they feel like they're there to like get to the task and that's it. And they always say, "How do you get all your people to attend everything?" I'm like, "I don't know. I think it's just what we've always
But
done."
I
And
bet if you asked your people too, not only for specific examples, you could also ask them questions like, hey, what was the last book that you read? And
yeah,
actually, did you
Mhm.
take anything and implement it from that book? To me, that's the more important part, because people will tell you, oh, I read 10 books, but I don't remember any of them,
yeah,
or I
Mhm.
read two books, but actually, this is one thing I learned and implemented. That's what I would want to know.
yeah, yeah. Love
Mm.
that.
The other
Love that.
thing that, Dana, to your question of other people may have challenges, is maybe they're not bringing them to the things that they actually need as an operations person,
Which is why
right?
you said it should be at their discretion. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there's room for both, right? I loved being in the room with my rainmaker and learning about sales and negotiation and all the things that I didn't do that, but learning that helped me help my team better. But I also needed
Mhm.
to be in rooms where it was just ops people.
Yep. Love that.
I remember, I won't even mention the name of the program just because, I only put somebody through it a couple of times, but I remember putting some people in a team group thing, and I remember listening some, and it would seem like a bunch of complaining, like a lot of complaining, like about the rainmakers, and I thought, well, that can't be very effective. Um, Do you find that sometimes? Is it because they're probably frustrated, or is that just probably the wrong hires?
I think it's both. I think it's multiple things. Sometimes it's the wrong hires. Sometimes it's that the leader is not a leader. They're not good leaders of the businesses. And I think that's one thing where I love, for example, we have a retreat once a year where it's just kind of like going to family reunion, but it's only ops people. And what I love is there are many long-term partnerships where people, it's like, Linda, you and Jimmy have been married for a long time. So the people around you have the blessing of looking at a model that works and
Mhm.
seeing how you work the model, right? And how you guys, we need that in business too. We need to be around rainmakers and ops bosses who are
Mm.
partnered for long term. So we see how to model communication. How do we handle disagreement? How do we, it's important for the ops boss to have different ideas and to not always agree with the rainmaker, but how do we have healthy conversations around that? So I think it can be a little bit of all of those things.
And do you think sometimes the more vague the more things we have someone do, Dana and I were talking about this because my true role models, are Dan Sullivan and Gary Keller. I mean, I feel like they're great leaders.
Mhm.
They, especially, not, I mean, Gary also, but when I look at Dan's organization, I always try to look at backstage and see what's really going on. And what I've noticed is the more narrow or niched that person's job description is, the more they excel. And the other thing I notice is, like Dan said something the other day in one of our meetings, he said, Kathy needs to know everything I'm doing, and I don't want to know anything she's doing. Right. And so I think we already, for me, it answers the question. Dana and I were like, well, are we those kind of leaders? Because if I had to deal with um, admin stuff all the time, I wouldn't even enjoy my job, right? But I realized I think when you said what you said a while ago, you answered the question. I don't think I've maybe one ever, I actually had a true ops boss.
Yeah.
I've had what I thought was ops bosses and they're not. So that answered my question for me. But the other way I want to ask you this is, in Dan's organization, he calls it you're looking for a self-managed team. So what I don't know is, are there people in between probably Dan and all the other roles? There's gotta be, right? If it's a
Yes.
high-minded person and they're, really sharp and savvy, I can give 90 minutes a week. If they're not, it just sucks the life out of me to have
Because
to
it's the
have those
difference
meetings.
between leading and managing. You don't want to manage anyone. You
Mhm.
want to lead them and for
Yeah.
them to be self-managed, right?
Yeah.
And the way you do that is by casting the vision and holding them accountable for results. Like you said, you don't need to. My ops boss, Brooke, is amazing. And I don't want to know all the details. My brain, I'm 99% D. Like, I can't slow down like that. I just need to know that I'm going to tell her, here's where we want to go. I don't care how we get here. Well, I care how, like with ethics and authenticity and all those things, but I don't care about the nitty gritty, how you're going to do it. I just want to know that we're going to be here on this day. Right. And then she
Mhm.
figures out how to do it. And then when she needs help, she'll ask.
Yeah.
So then do you
So
think, well, okay, oh, well, hold on, let me think about this for a second because, well, do you want to share number 3 and number 4 and then we can come and then we'll go back to, because I do have a
sure.
question about all that together.
Awesome. Well, number 3 was working on your relationship like you work on the business. And the biggest complaint that I hear around the country from admin and ops bosses both is that they can't get time with their rainmaker,
Mm.
that they don't
Mm.
see them for 2 weeks at a time or 3 weeks at a time. And this is, if you want someone to pour in and build your business with you and for you, you need to pour in and build with them. And that means you have to have a relationship, right? It's like, when does your marriage kind of get struggle sometimes? Maybe when you're passing in the night and you're not spending quality time with each other, right? So you've got to spend that quality time with your ops boss too. So we talked about building your user manual, your CEO user manual. And I actually used that in my last hire. I use it in the interview process. And then we continue to use it once they're hired. And then we talked about going on a date. I can't remember what the third thing was. I think there were 3 things we talked about, but just really spending time to get to know the person and what's important to them. And then the 4th thing was, for whoever that leader is that's reporting to you, and this should be for all the people in your organization, for them to have clarity on winning. All of our jobs have changed significantly during the shift and during the boom market we came in. I mean, we went from pandemic shutdown to boom market, more business than we could handle. Everyone's overwhelmed, to now shifted market and everyone's working hard and getting jobs back. So redefining what's your job description, what's the 20% of the role, and what are the key performance indicators so that I know I'm winning all the time. Or if I'm not winning, how do I close the gap? So those were the 4 things I think we talked about.
I loved all those. And then when I pointed thumbs, I was like, whew, I still have a lot of work to do.
Well, no, that last one, let me just clarify, because a lot of people have experienced teams and experienced admin. You don't have to sit down and write that yourself. If you're making your first hire, I would suggest you absolutely sit down and write that job description. If you are on an existing business, have your admin write that, and then you look at it and go, yes, I agree with this, or no, I disagree with this, right?
Yeah, okay.
Because you're not
Dana,
going
I
to sit
think
and
about
write
the
a job
impact.
description, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking the impact filter. The problem with Dana and I is we have a million ideas. They
Yeah.
don't even know where we are on any of them at any given time, because we already had a new one. They're working on the old one, and we've already got a new one we're thinking about.
Christy,
But
do you
that's
have a
why
lot of
those meetings once a week, if you literally just give them an hour of your time or 30 minutes of your time once a week, that's your job, is just to cast the vision, clear the smoke. Sometimes things change. And then you're 10 ideas down and they're working on the one from last week. And you're like, oh no, I just mentioned that, but I actually didn't really mean that to be a priority. But that's your moment. That Brooke and I literally re-triage priority on a weekly basis.
Yes. Okay, that's good. I feel better.
That's good.
Yeah.
I feel better too on that. That's true. And I wrote that down too, Christy, that you said our job is to clear the smoke, cast the vision, and then remove the roadblocks.
Yeah.
Which, Linda, if you think about that, that's the stuff we're good at. Tell me
Yeah.
what the problem is and we'll fix it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I call that, because what I usually tell someone that's working with me is, look, if you don't communicate with me where you are on these things, they go into a black hole. I
Yeah.
begin to make up stories, and the stories I make up are, we're not working on it,
Yep.
or something's wrong. And if something's wrong, I'm the person you want to tell, because that's what I do. I solve problems. But I think I'm
But
pointing so
that's
many
what your
fingers.
goal meeting is, once a week. That's literally what Brooke and I should record sometimes. She literally
Yes.
walks me through. I don't go through her 411 and hold her accountable. She walks me through her 411 and says, okay, my priorities this week are 1, 2, and 3 in this order. This is what I'm going to have done by next week. And then she'll go through her on the business. We do in the business first. That's our 20%. Then we do on the business. And she'll be like, okay, here's the 10 things that I know you're wondering about. Boom, 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 boom. Here's where they are. And we're in and out in 20 to 30 minutes on Monday morning. And then I know everything that's happening. It's like she put a big map in front of me and I'm like, cool, we're going the right way.
Sounds like she came with batteries included.
She pushes me. She's amazing.
Honestly, though, I'm just having so many ahas hearing you say that, because Linda, how many times have we been like, okay, pull out your 411, or you didn't send me your what are you doing this week? You know what I mean? As opposed to Christy, you saying that she's like, here's my 411, here's what I'm doing this week.
She
So tell
walks me
me,
through.
so tell me when you did your interview with Brooke, what are the things that showed up that you look back now and go, "Oh, this is why she's like she is."
Good question.
So I would say the one of the things that I do when I'm hiring, and it goes back to what we started the conversation with, when I said I'm an evidence-based person, is I do an actual road test. And I even did this when I was back on my real estate team too. If I'm going to hire somebody, once I get pretty far in and I follow career visioning and I get pretty far in and I've got narrowed down to 2 or 3 candidates, I have them actually do a road test. So when Brooke joined OpsBoss Coaching, I said to her, and I don't give a lot of time for direction because I want somebody who can move quickly without a lot of direction. So in our interview, in our final interview, I said, okay, the last step of our interview is I want you to build me an onboarding system for new coaches. And I only want you to spend 1 hour on this because obviously it would take a lot more than 1 hour. And you can either ask me questions now or you can ask me questions and schedule a 15-minute call with me this week. And I want you to tell me when it will be done by. And I gave no parameters. I didn't tell her if I wanted video or screen shares or a document. I didn't give her any instruction. And I did this with multiple people. And
Mm,
so she said, okay, let me ask you some questions now. And then at the end, she said, I'll have it to you in 1 week. And when she
mm,
sent hers compared to the other ones I got, it blew me out of the water. And I knew
Wow.
she could actually do the job because she was doing something she was going to be doing in the job, but just gave me
mhm.
like a sneak peek. And I used to do the same thing on my real estate team, listing coordinator. Awesome. Can you send me a pretend brochure? Pretend you're selling your mom and dad's house. What would you write in the MLS description? Or that kind of thing. So you could see that they actually can do the job.
Okay, so good. Do you
That's
do
so good.
This is so good. Do you do any assessments? Do you behavioral
I
assessments with people?
do. So, what I did this time on my real estate team, we did career visioning. So, we always did the KPA. I asked, since I'm ops boss isn't Keller Williams, I don't have access to the KPA that way. So, I just asked people to send me anything they have. I had some people
Mhm,
send Myers Briggs, DISC,
Right.
whatever they had. I do DISC after people are hired because DISC helps me know how to coach and communicate with them. So I
Right.
didn't use
Not,
it as part of yeah. I just asked people to send me whatever that they had.
mm,
yeah, that's good.
okay.
That's good. I know gosh, I feel like we might have to have you back for part two because I have more questions too. But I did have, okay. So in the beginning, I wrote this down because I want to make sure I ask this because you said everybody now is virtual or working remote.
Mhm.
And I'm struggling with that. And so I would love to just hear like any quick tips or feedback and because much like what Linda said earlier, I feel like sometimes, and it's not with everybody, but I feel like sometimes when I don't know like that they're in there all day every day, I don't know
If
what they're
you were
doing.
meeting with them once a week for 30 minutes on their goals, then
Mhm.
you would know because
Mhm.
you don't care. Well, maybe, I don't know. I will say, I don't care what my people are doing at any given time of the day. I care about the results. And if the results are there, we are golden. And I know the
Yeah.
results are either there or not there because I'm meeting with them once a week on their goals.
Yeah. Okay.
Now,
But you
that
wouldn't
being
I mean, you would
said, I think it's hard to be, I wish we had more time together in person because I think you lose some when you're not together. But it's not a trust issue for me because I lead by results. I don't pay for time, I pay for results.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, and I think if you have a good ops boss though, do they meet with some of the people? I mean, first of all,
That's
Dana,
what
there's
I
no
was
way you
just
can meet with everybody.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, Linda. I think maybe the aha I just took from that is the ops boss is doing the one-on-ones, but maybe I should just have them update me on our weekly so that I'm feeling like things are moving forward,
Yeah.
you know? I think because
Yeah, yeah.
also
I mean, you guys are running multiple businesses, right? So
right.
when I was talking last week, most of the people in the audience were rainmakers with a single business, with their real estate
Mhm.
business. When you have multiple businesses, you should have one operations person that is reporting to you, because your span, Gary talks about that, your span of control, you can't just keep adding people across an org chart all reporting to you. That will never make sense.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
But if you, Dana, for example, if you have one ops person and they have a 135, for example, for the
Yeah.
operations side of the business, then they can report to you on those results. And you don't need to get into all the little nitty gritty as long
Yeah.
as you're getting the results of the whole thing.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
Well, and I think too, when I look at my mistakes, so many of them in this area, I think sometimes I don't do enough of the evidence based on the front end, and I wind up with somebody who isn't a Brooke. I mean, they're
Yeah.
good people, they do okay work, but they're not Brooke. Then I'm stuck with, you know, somebody who kinda isn't self-motivated, if you called it, you know what I mean? And motivated can mean I can figure it out, or I can ask you if I need it. I won't let it, die if I don't know the answer. I'll make sure you give it to me. But I'm also can move without you filling in every blank.
Yeah.
Yes. And that is, there are different levels, and you can look for that. I mean, those are things in your interview too, is, are you the person who likes to check things off the list, but the list is already made for you? Or are you the person that likes to create the system and
Mm.
check the things off the list? Or are you just the person who likes to create the system, but someone else has to check them off the list? Those are kind of three different levels of OpsBoss. And so, for
Mhm.
example, when I was on my real estate team, I will never be the person that's just going to do the same thing every day and check it off the
Mhm,
list. I can't do that.
mhm,
Mhm.
And I started and had to do it all because it was two agents and me. So if
mhm,
you get that person who wants to grow fast, you, Linda, have the proven track record that you can attract that person who can grow into that higher level role. What I see happen is many agents say that they're going to grow and move
and they
fast,
have
but they
they have
don't.
no
And
spot.
then the talented person will
Mhm.
leave.
Yeah.
Because they don't see any more opportunity. Absolutely,
Right.
I see that all the time with rainmakers. Okay, do
Yep.
you think there's too many different things you can have someone do? Do you think it needs to be more narrowed, or, like,
I think the
I think
problem
sometimes I
solves
expect one
itself if
person
you're
to.
growing fast enough. When you hire someone into a newer business, they have to do all the
Mhm,
things, right? Think about a rainmaker hiring their first assistant. They have to do marketing, finances, transactions, listings, pick up the kids, whatever. They're doing all the things. But as the business grows, that person can naturally evolve into the areas that they're strongest at.
mm,
So I think it's up to them to create that. I think, yes, you can have, I don't think you can have people doing too many things, but I think the expectation would be that you have to have clarity on what is the 20% of those things. What's the
mm,
top 20? And I want someone who performs at a 10 out of 10 in that area, but maybe they're going to be a 6, 7, or 8 in some of the other places until we grow the business big enough that I can hire someone that can be a 10 in that area.
that makes
Christy,
sense.
how many people do you think an ops boss can lead?
I think how
Like,
many people can any leader lead? I think if
yeah.
you ask Gary, he'll say 3 to 5 people should be your span of control.
Okay.
And once you
Yeah.
get beyond that, you're probably not as good.
I
Okay.
actually was looking through my notes from Gary's last top 100. And Linda, he said two things. I don't remember if I told you these, but that go with what we've been talking about. He said, but the first one is we don't bring people into our life to change them. We bring them into our life to motivate them, not
Mhm,
motivate them.
mhm,
It's to like aid them to get better. But then he said motivation is entry level and winners don't need motivation. If you
mm,
think about all the people who are winners, they don't really need somebody to motivate them. They need somebody to aid them to get better at what they're already at, but not like,
Mm.
motivate them. And I always say this wrong, Linda, when I say this, but it's something about, you always say something about like pushing a noodle up a hill or something like
Yeah.
that.
I said it
And
feels like pushing a wet noodle up a
yeah,
hill.
a wet noodle on the hill, yeah. And that's what it reminded me of. And I feel like that's the difference between the people who need like the motivation versus the ones that are winners that don't necessarily need it, but they need somebody to just aid them, help aid them.
Mm. Wow. Ugh.
Which Christy is goes with what you said, kind of your 4 tips. It's like that's not really motivating your ops boss. It's just doing the things to aid them to really be better and be a partner to you.
Because the ops boss needs you, right?
Yeah.
The ops boss is not a visionary, but they are, I call it a co-creator and co-caster of vision. It's your vision as the business owner, but they are going to cast the vision with you, and
Yeah.
they need that vision from you, right? They're not
Mhm.
going to naturally do that on their own. And together you can do much more, farther, faster, right?
Yeah. I love
And I
that.
think when I start asking these questions, the painful answer is I have people in my life that all of those things you explained are super easy with.
Yeah.
And then I have some that when you tell me I have to do that, I'm like, "Oh," and that tells me I got the wrong person.
It always comes back to the
I hate
who.
that. I hate that it comes
Well,
back
it
to
may
that.
be that you have the wrong person, or you need a person in between you that they're reporting to that person.
Good
Yeah.
point. Very good point.
Because
That's
Which
probably
we
what I
need
need.
Linda is
those, Linda, you're going to be the people that are like methodical and slow and check the boxes. They're going to drive you freaking nuts. And you need those people in your life. Like I always tell people, I need my accountant to be a 10 out of 10 on details, but don't tell
yeah.
me all the details, just get them right. But if you're my
Mhm.
CPA, I don't want to go to jail. Like do it right, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Gosh.
totally. Which Linda, that was your aha, I think, from even the last on the episode when you said, I think I need a who for the who.
Yeah, I think I need a who for the who's.
Yeah, a who for the
Linda,
who.
I
Okay,
think you need what I call a DC unicorn. You need the people that are like,
Chris.
yes,
Yes.
those are many of my coaches are DCs, and they're the people with one foot, and they're entrepreneurs,
Yeah,
Yes.
entrepreneurial brain, operations brain together.
Yep. I have one girl in my life that's been with me 21 years. She is a DC.
yeah,
I cannot function without her. She works maybe even faster sometimes than I'm like, "Did that bill even come in or did she already get that darn thing paid?" I'm like, "Didn't why are we signing this check? Is the bill haven't even come in yet?" She's just that fast and she thinks through everything that could happen. Yes, yes, yes. I totally agree. I think a DC is exactly the behavior I
There you
love.
go. You're
And they don't
magic.
need a lot of time always. I sometimes say, I think, "God, I need to take Carrie to lunch," or something, and because I couldn't live without her. But the thing is, it's like,
but Carrie
we all
doesn't really probably sit around and say, "I wish Linda would take me to lunch today."
no,
Carrie's
not at
like, "Let
all.
me knock the," you know what I mean?
Matter of fact, she had the idea for us to do a birthday thing, and I said, "That's a great idea. Let
Yeah.
everybody in the office be responsible for one person." And then after a while, we couldn't even do the birthday parties because I was never in town long enough. So I'm like, "Y'all just go ahead and do the birthday parties. I'll send my present."
No, you need the assistant that's going to order her own present for herself.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. I said, "I got an idea on the birthday thing. Everybody in the office pick a person, and you're responsible to not miss their birthday, and here's what the office is gonna do."
Perfect.
Oh,
So,
gosh,
Christy,
Christy.
how do people find you? How do they get a coach if they want to coach? Do you coach? Like, tell them really quickly about
Yep,
all of the
yep.
things.
Everybody needs
Awesome.
you.
So we're at OpsBossCoaching.com. They can email me, Christy at OpsBossCoaching.com, or follow us on Instagram or Facebook. We have group coaching, we have one-on-one coaching, we have classes. I keep a very small, purposeful, intentional roster of, I have mostly fairly long-term clients. I
Yeah,
have coaches who are in all different operations roles. So I have a 7th level CEO who leads a real estate team, but she's all ops, not sales. We have a coach who led a team that did 700 units, but she's now running all the operations for David Osborne. We have coaches who have built their own independent brokerages as ops people, and then we have traditional directors of operations who are coaches. So if they want to reach out, they can just email me or message me, schedule a call, jump on my calendar. Most people don't know what they need. So I'm happy to just chat and figure out what it is that can help them best. What we find is people typically 3 years or less are really great in operations group coaching because it helps them develop the community, and that's a great resource for them. And then the higher level they are, then they move into one-on-one.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Love that. Awesome.
Awesome.
Love it.
Great.
Okay, that's so good. I agree. We'll have to do a second
to have you
episode because you have so much wisdom that we all need so badly.
Let's do it.
All right. So if you have not, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And remember, the greatest compliment you can give Dana and I is a 5-star review, and to pass this podcast along to anyone who you think would find this information helpful. If you have a challenge, a question, or a guest that you think would be good on the podcast, be sure and reach out to us at info@everything life and real estate. And Dana, I guess I'll see you in a few days at Highlands in North Carolina.
Yes, I will. See you then.
I'm
Thanks,
ready. Excited.
Christy.
Thank you, Christy. We appreciate you.
Be sure to subscribe
Thank
for
you
more
so much,
business
guys.
strategies and tactics to inspire you to live an abundant real estate life. Don't forget to rate and review so we can bring you the best content. Find this and other valuable information at everythinglifeandrealestate.com.